RTE Radio 1, Bowman, Saturday 8:30, presented by John Bowman.
Good morning and welcome to this week's programme. Part 2 of our tribute to Dermot Morgan, the first anniversary of whose death falls on Monday next. This morning, Dermot Morgan plays Charlie Haughey, Gerard Collins, Michael Noonan, Padraig Flynn and others. Dermot Morgan on what made him a comic and a satirist, and on his move to Britain, his love of the stage, on the beginnings of Father Ted, and tributes from PJ Mara, Michael Noonan, when he died just a year ago. Dermot Morgan's anniversary, the first anniversary of his death, falls on Monday next. This morning from RT's Sound Archives, part 2 of our tribute programme to him, to mark his contribution to Irish radio. He was most famous, of course, for Scrap Saturday, and our first choice from the archives this morning gives you some idea of how he worked, how he could exploit an open goal, if a politician gave him half an opening. But first the context. A regular target was the then Foreign Minister Gerard Collins, and believed by some to be a potential bidder for the leadership of Fianna Fáil when a vacancy occurred.
And now, Collins of Arabia.
Firstly, let me say that neutrality is a very important part of our policy. There are two sides to this whole issue, my good side and my not so good side, and I appeal to the photographers to take my good side. On the one hand, of course, we're appalled.
And when a vote of confidence was called in Charles Haughey's leadership of the party late in 1991, Jerry Collins made a famous broadcast. The then most significant defector from the Haughey camp was his finance minister, Albert Reynolds. And of course, the significance of that defection was soon seen when Albert Reynolds became leader of the party some months later. But when his exit from the Haughey cabinet was imminent, some weeks before, Jerry Collins famously appealed to him on RTE television news. This was to be satirised by Dermot Morgan on that week's Scrap Saturday, and here's a chance to hear both broadcasts. First, the actuality of Jerry Collins on TV News.
The declaration this evening by Albert Reynolds that he's to try and vote Charlie Haughey out of office and take it on for himself. I think this is going to wreck our party right down the centre and is going to burst up government, and is certainly not going to serve the best interests of the people. What Albert is doing now is so wrong that he should, even at this late stage, pull back from wrecking the government and throwing the country into a state of panic and chaos. And for my part, I'm supporting my Taoiseach. I trust him. I respect his authority, his office and the dignity of that office. And might I say, Albert, before you vote and before you issue this particular statement in the formal sense, Albert, face up to your responsibilities, and if you feel as solemnly as you believe you do, well then you have no option but to give us your resignation even before you vote.
Needless to say, this was the sort of broadcast which was grist to Dermot Morgan's mill. And as you'll hear now, there wasn't too much rewriting needed by Dermot when he covered the affair on that week's Scrap Saturday.
Oh, Albert. This is me, Gerard, speaking to you, Albert. Howl. Oh, you are men of stone. Albert, you're a howl with this carry on yourself. I beg you, please, even now, desist. Draw back. Even now. You'll wreck the party, so you will. You're showing frightful political immaturity. How sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless Minister for Finance. Blow winds, crack your cheeks. How rage you hurricanes. Spout fire, spit rain, spout. You'll burst the party. You're going to burst it. That's what you're going to do. You'll wreck it. Burning, scalding, stench, corruption, fie. I myself have no leadership ambitions.
And as to his beginnings as a writer of comedy and a performer, Mike Murphy on The Arts Show discussed this with Dermot Morgan.
Where did you get your askew look at life and your ability to mimic? Was it from your parents?
I think my mother certainly had a very, she was a brilliant mimic and, quite savage too in her own way. She could really get on the character as well as the voice.
What, the Neighbours?
Neighbours, yeah, and yeah, I can't name the names obviously, but there was a list of people she could do, and they were brilliant. And I think that has to have kind of gone in here into the head eventually, and just it started. And also, of course, that I think genetically you'd get the ability to do voices would be handed down. My father had I think he'd a reasonably, he was, I suppose, a bit of an outsider in his own way. I don't know that he necessarily was cut out for suburban life, no more than myself.
No. Do you see yourself like that as an outsider? You do?
Yeah. I do. You know that, seriously, I do.
I know you do, don't you?
And
you don't feel the thing about the lovies and all that,
No.
the in crowd, and
I don't want to play golf with Dickie Rock.
you don't want to play.
No
golf
respect,
with
no disrespect
Dickie.
to
Yeah, I
Dickie,
know.
but I don't want to be. No, I don't think I'm of that. I don't think I'll be hanging out with the.
Do you want to go to
children.
first nights?
Not particularly. No. I go to the odd
What
one,
about
yeah.
your friends?
Oh yeah, I mean, the friends I have.
Yeah.
Just per se. What about them? What kind of friends have I got?
Yeah, what kind of friends have you got?
Not a lot. Isn't that dreadful? I have. It's terrible. What an admission. But I'm not that. I have there's a coterie of guys that I play football with, and 2 or 3 are what we call the committee, and we're very.
But you're a brutal
good buddies.
footballer, Dermot.
I've improved.
Oh, have you?
Old age is amazing. Also because we weeded out the guys in the group who were any good. We got rid of them. No, what we did was we got out the thugs and we just kept it. And it's now Brazilian style football.
Right. Oh,
It's
cerebral.
very cerebral. Yeah. Did he play for? Who did he play for? I
He was
remember
the striker.
Yeah, that was Jose Cerebral. He was great. But Zhao, it'll be Zhao. Is that Zhao Cerebral? Yeah.
yes.
Let's be particularly about it. But that's the kind of thing. I wouldn't particularly go to first nights. I mean, I've gone to a couple, and I think it'd be fun. But I don't want to turn up at the opening of every envelope. No, that's true. And every envelope doesn't want me at the opening either.
I think it's fair to say that Dermot Morgan had first become a national figure, first established his national reputation by his sketches on the Mike Murphy television show. And he also worked with Mike on radio. He was a scriptwriter. Mike did the talking, as in this sketch, A Day at the Bank, written for Morning Call, the programme which preceded Morning Ireland on Radio 1. This from just 20 years ago.
Day at the bank. Last week we went for a day at the bank. Daddy takes me and my brother and sister and Mammy there every 3 months. We got up at 8 o'clock. I washed my face and brushed my teeth and put on my best clothes. Daddy told me to take off my best clothes and put on my worst clothes and to take off my shoes and to walk around the back garden. Daddy says this is a little game just like Halloween and we must look like poor children. We didn't eat any breakfast. Daddy said we must look hungry, really hungry. This game is great fun. I was looking forward to seeing the nice man at the bank. He must really like Daddy, 'cause he's always writing to him. But the nice man at the bank must have a big sin on his soul, 'cause every time he reads one of his letters, Daddy says, the nice man at the bank can go to hell. When we got to the bank, the nice man came over to Daddy. He looked funny and must have just had a shave 'cause he had foam around his mouth. Daddy started to talk about gardening. He told the nice man that you can't get blood out of a turnip. The nice man must be silly 'cause everyone knows that. The nice man must like Daddy an awful lot 'cause he promised to start putting the squeeze on him. I love squeezes. Then Daddy told him there was no blood in money. Well, the way he put it was, there's no bleeding money. Yours sincerely, Dermot Morgan, first class.
And in the archives, by far the most revealing interview with Dermot Morgan is the Arts Show interview with his old colleague Mike Murphy. In this sequence, he questioned him about what informed his satire.
You know, we had this alleged republic, or the genesis of same in 1922, right? And the thing was to break away from the rule of the empire. And the first thing we installed was a Victorian Catholic theocracy. And, you know, I was born 52. I can still kind of recall the greyness of the 50s, of the end of the 50s. I'd have been 8 in 1960, right? And I do remember John F. Kennedy coming here and that was different and it was bright and it was nice and all the rest of it. But it was very grey. And I mean, I think the irony is that, you know, we were always set at odds with the Marxists in the East, and I'll hear that. But in a way,
we were always set at odds with what?
We know the bogey person for us was the Reds.
The
in
Reds,
the East.
yeah, sure.
But in an odd way, we were a Catholic mirror image, you know, fairly close to a type of dictatorship in many respects. And I don't feel I'm exaggerating when I say that it's sort of a dictatorship of the, I was going to say the proletariat, but the dictatorship of the hierarchy, really. And I feel that our public life and the way we conduct our public life wasn't ventilated by any sort of plurality or by choice in any sense. And things were by diktat. It was the confessional state. They closed plays. They went into the Pike or wherever. There was a condom on the stage or something.
There actually wasn't, but...
Well, there was believed to be.
But there was believed to be.
And I feel absolutely... pretty cheesed off about that. So what? I'd be like Sinead O'Connor now on the famine. But that is what has informed my sense of if you like,
indignation.
Outrage. Yeah, and indignation
and outrage.
Yeah.
Is it?
I would say it goes that far. Yeah.
We look at a parliamentary democracy that puts our American system to shame. Tonight on 60 Minutes. Amidst all the questions being asked about the Clarence Thomas affair and the divisive and viciously confrontational nature of our political system, 60 Minutes went in search of the perfect parliamentary democracy. We think we found it in the far-off little island of Ireland. The Irish are a happy people, and no wonder when you hear of just how well their political system operates. We spoke to the man responsible for Ireland's 40 Shades of Green, the country's Environment Secretary, Pádraig Flynn.
Oh yes, we have a marvellous system here, the best in the world, I would say. We have a tremendous leader at the moment, a great father of the nation. We would love to have him with us forever, but of course he and his colleagues understand too well that the time has come when he will hand on the reins of power to a younger man. And it will only take the merest hint to the leader to persuade him that now is the right time, because you see, here in Ireland, politicians are not interested in power. No. It is service to the state that comes first.
At the Irish State Department, Secretary Collins was equally enthusiastic.
Our system is the envy of the free world. I've had vast experience abroad, and frankly, it's a mess. Everyone talking different languages. There are lots of free meals, all right, but the foreign food plays havoc with my stomach. They're always going on this old nonsense about apartheid or Zionism, the collapse of communism and so on, but they never get close to the real people, to the voters, like I do in Abbeyfield. I mean, when is the last time a politician opened the bar, video library and Quasar Emporium in Brussels?
Debates in the Irish Parliamentary Chamber, the Dáil, are exemplary in their seriousness, their courtesy, and the way in which no attempt is made to evade the real issues.
And as for these petty, puling little business problems, how dare the Workers' Party accuse me of any involvement? What are you? But the rump of official IRA?
Everywhere we went in Ireland, we found great love and affection amongst the ordinary folk for their politicians. Whenever we mentioned them, people would laugh gaily and order another round of good old Irish Guinness. Leading Irish feminist politician Mary O'Rourke spoke of this bond.
Well, it's great. It's mighty now. It really is. We have these meetings and everyone shouts and cheers and claps us on the back. And people are always ready to offer their opinion to us on how things are going. They'll shout up at me, "Go girl, Mary, we're with you all the way." And it's on this basis we decide policy. Careful listening to what the people tell us. It brings a tear to my eye to know how much joy and goodness I'm responsible for by such selfless service to the nation.
Yes, indeed. We would do well in America to follow Ireland's lead. As a man in a pub said to me just before we left, "You fellas might think you're the land of the free, but we're the land of the freebie." Then he laughed loudly and threw back his pint of Guinness in one gulp. And you know something? He looked kind of proud. This is Harry Reasoner in the Emerald Isle for 60 Minutes.
Like many individuals working in the media and theatre, Dermot Morgan's career was a roller coaster. It had its successes and it had its disappointments. One of them for him was RTÉ's decision to drop Scrap Saturday. He developed his stage work. He could fill an Irish theatre for a week, and he was keen to move to Britain, which he was in the process of doing when Mike Murphy recorded his Arts Show interview.
What's your leading tenet? Is it ambition?
Yeah, I think I am. I think I am ambitious. Yeah, I definitely want to do the best I can do. With no less than yourself. And
I'm a bit more laid back about it, though, aren't I?
Well, I think in talking to you in the past that you always felt that you wanted no regrets. You always wanted to have tried your damnedest, and yeah. I respected that. I'm not patting your head for you or buttering your bread or whatever the expression is, but I feel the same way. I want to do my damnedest. I can now go into the Olympia or wherever and fill the place, and that's a big step up from, with respect, writing letters to you in the morning, or coming in and doing a 2 or 3 minute clip on television or whatever it was. Now I can get up and my performance is like different.
And does the whole thing with Channel 4, that is a justification. You're heading towards a pinnacle. So therefore the Channel 4 thing, it must be very important. Tell us about that. This is the Father Ted Crilly series.
Yes, and
it's Father Trendy 20 years on, is it?
Well, I don't think it's I would say that Father Trendy helped in some respects to get me the part. I'm purely in this sitcom as a performer, as an actor, if you like. Though I prefer to think of myself perhaps as a comedian, but it is an acting gig. That's what it is. And I was chuffed about it. I could do it. I could learn lines and deliver the goods. And I think that people at Channel 4 are even more delighted than they expected with the. Without bolstering myself, their feeling was that I had really acted with ability for in this part. It's written by 2 Irish guys, Arthur Matthews and Graham Linehan, who, as I've often said, I'm on record that they're sick bastards, and
that's an accolade.
That's an accolade, and I think they, being sick bastard myself, I was able to get on. We recognised kindred spirits, and I hope maybe that we can write something as well in the future. Obviously not Father Ted.
So does it mean then, is your career going to go to Britain? I mean, in a way, you had to contemplate getting out of Ireland because it's too small. You're repeating yourself. Yeah. The politicians may change, but still you're doing the same stuff with references and all that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, you've seen the show, and there's an expectation and a demand there that I do the political thing, and I know that sort of got to 1 or 2 of the critics who sort of felt, well, we know this political kind of area. But the point is, maybe if that seems to them not to be particularly new, that's a reflection perhaps of the stagnancy of Irish political life, the fact that John Bruton hasn't registered yet, and so forth. But the area of the show which I want to develop would have been what you saw in the first 20 minutes, maybe first half hour of the show, which is chatting about things, and that's where the market is.
And it's Dermot Morgan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And chatting and observing.
Yeah. And throwing in the voices of maybe a foreign type or a London cabbie or whatever, but not Michael Noonan. Michael Noonan doesn't travel as a gig further north than Dundalk.
Yo, baby, this is MN on FGFM, your TD DJ, morning, noon and night, and we all know which you love most, Noonan. I'm afraid there wasn't much love in Leinster House this week. There's a lot of the old...
And this is one of his regular sketches, starring Michael Noonan of Fine Gael.
Of course, now FG is on the lookout for a shining new star. Well, I saw the light reflecting off my head the other night and thought, well, you wouldn't get anyone to shine brighter than myself. But I'd say it could be another senior front bencher this time. We're united on this, both senior and junior members. No more Mr. Nice Guy. From now on, it's loyalty to the party and loyalty to the leader of the day, depending on who the leader is that day.
And when Dermot Morgan died, suddenly, a year ago, Michael Noonan was among the first to pay tribute to him.
He was a genuinely funny guy, and he was funny socially in company, and he was funny on his programme, and I don't think anything ever happened like it on RTE before or since. It was genuine political satire. Most of what passes for political satire in the media in Ireland is just variations on abuse.
You were one of the lucky ones, because you were one of the ones who did get imitated by him and did get lampooned by him. There were many other politicians who weren't quite as fortunate.
I suppose that's right. I suppose a lot of people would love to have been in the position, especially now, of having been lampooned by him and being in the archives. But I remember when Scrap Saturday came on first, I didn't know it was coming, and I was listening to it one morning, listening to RTE, and it came on, and it was absolutely gripping stuff, absolutely amazingly gripping, and it was very risky as well. It was totally different from anything RTE had ever done before, and of course eventually it got too hot to handle for RTE, and they dropped it, which was a great pity. One of the great tragedies is that as all the tributes are being paid tonight, Dermot Morgan really became a national star thanks to television stations in the United Kingdom.
And PJ Mara, government press secretary to Charlie Haughey, whom Dermot Morgan lampooned in the favourite sketches of all in the Scrap Saturday series, the Haughey-Mara exchanges. PJ Mara also paid him a tribute that night in this special programme presented by Miles Dungan.
I thought he was terrifically talented, and sometimes I worried about that because, and I've heard a lot of people saying it today that, I think he was so... But he was bubbling over with talent, and I think sometimes that he needed to restrain himself a bit and be a bit more maybe organised is probably not the word, but he just wanted to do so many things. And if you met him, he was different to other people in comedy, or when they're off stage, they're off stage. Dermot was always trying out new things, or telling you about new ideas, or new walks, or new voices, or new concepts. It depended on just what was bothering him at the time. But he was all the time thinking, plotting, scheming, and he'd share that with you. Even when the ideas were only in embryo, if you like.
And it didn't bother you, the fact that every single week on Scrap Saturday you were depicted as the lapdog, the professional lapdog?
Well, I suppose, he didn't quite catch the real sophisticated, thoughtful, reflective me. But he always, his explanation for that was that, when he started doing Scrap Saturday, that very few people had ever really heard me, because I didn't...
They all think you sound like Owen Rowe, unfortunately.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to carry that particular cross.
Maybe I did. Maybe how I sound now is a response to that. But I think his view on that was that people didn't know what I sounded like. The concept of the show was that Charlie Haughey was the all-dominating, scheming, plotting, devious power at the centre, and that I was some kind of Uriah Heep. And that served the purpose, of his concept, and it worked. And I'm afraid there wasn't any point in my making representations for him to change that. Because
you mean you're denying it, PJ?
No, it didn't bother me at all, not at all.
And our last illustration of Dermot Morgan's talent this morning comes from this Haughey Mara sketch, broadcast when Charles Haughey was leading his last government. Many of those who'd been his closest acolytes had decided that this was to be his last government, although Charles Haughey himself hadn't given up all hope. But the writing seemed to be on the wall. Some had even been so bold as to tell him to his face in the Fianna Fáil rooms in Leinster House that they never wanted to fight another election with his face on the poster. But some few remained faithful. But who were the Haughey loyalists? This was a situation easily exploited by Dermot Morgan's pen and voice.
Mara, this ad in the Irish Times job seeker column.
Oh, yeah?
Executive with press management skills seeks appointment. Pleasant disposition, can take pressure, used to dealing with awkward customers. I wonder who that might be, Mara.
No idea, boss.
It's you, Mara, thinking the end is nigh.
Well, it's just the wife and kids, boss. I have to earn a crust somehow.
Mara, keep this nonsense up and you will be qualified as manager, sewage treatment station Ringsend. Understood? And I can give you more shit than the whole of Dublin.
I know, yeah.
And I know how to create a real stink.
Yes, boss.
Stop blubbering. Here's a copy of another of those programs for national something or other. Dry your tears. Be rational, man. Who do you imagine might be able to challenge me?
Well, boss,
yes?
Well, Albert, I suppose. He has the troops with him.
The troops behind Reynolds? I think not.
Well, he has the officers.
Officers? What officers? You call 1P Flintstone an officer? More non-com material, I think you'll agree.
Well, there are others with Albert, boss.
Who? John Ellis? Liam Lawler? Good old Lord Lucan? I think not. I have my cohorts, my loyal following, especially young Lochinvar, that prince among thieves, Bertie. What preferment can Albert offer him that I would not?
Well, the environment, boss. He's offering him the environment. Oh,
I'm sorry, an officer, especially the commanding officer, should never strike a man. It's just that I've been under a little pressure lately. Mara, you poor child, come here, sit on my knee.
Right.
It's one thing to count the half-crowns at the back of the dance hall and deal with gutty showband managers. Quite another to deal with the economy of a nation.
But he ran a successful pet food business and he made a fortune. Well, Albert's a self-made man like yourself, boss.
Self-made man?
Yeah.
A fortune indeed. No mystery about making a fortune from grinding up knackered horses to keep Rover's coat shiny. The punters can see the trick. They can see what's up his sleeve. They can see how he made his fortune. They could never fathom how I made mine. That's why I have an air of mystery, charisma, enigma. I'll make pet food of Albert. New chopped finance minister gets the dogs barking, and now that he has them barking, he has no bite. New pal, or should that be old chum, with added liver, lily liver, and a strong hint of chicken.
And and a postscript. In the course of his long, discursive interview with Mike Murphy, the subject of mortality came up. It was treated rather irreverently, as perhaps was appropriate since they were not to know just how soon, just a few years, and while Dermot Morgan was still in his mid-40s, that he was to die so suddenly just a year ago.
Do you have any feeling of mortality?
Oh, increasingly so. But,
yeah.
I do. I mean, and I think there is this always seems like the cop-out, isn't it? A sense of spirituality. But I feel that there are areas which I don't know an awful lot about, but seem to be beyond our ken, as it were. And spiritual areas, that there are things which have occurred which, lead me to believe everything is not what is empirically so. There are other dimensions which you shouldn't rule out. Honestly.
So then, what are your priorities in terms of your? Your ambition is very high in your list of priorities, and you do feel you would have the feeling that I have been given a talent, I have a talent, and I want to use it to its maximum.
Yeah.
But outside of that, what are the priorities that you have in your life?
Outside of a professional thing.
Yeah, outside of professional things.
I think to an alarming degree, the professional thing has, and the frustration that goes with not getting that right, or getting whatever it is you're required to practice your trade. It has dominated my life in many respects. After that, in a very broad sense, I want to scent the roses. I was going to say scent the daisies, but I prefer to say smell the roses. That I do want to have time to enjoy my life such as it is.
This morning's programme was to mark the first anniversary of the death of Dermot Morgan, which falls on Monday next. The programme was based on original programmes by Mike Murphy, Anne Walsh, Jerry Stembridge, John Penrose, Miles Duncan, Eamon Lawler, David Handley, and of course Dermot Morgan. More voices from the archives at the same time on Saturday morning next. Thank you for listening this morning, and good morning.
That programme was presented and produced by John Bowman.